Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Glenn Mattson joining us. Glenn, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mike. I greatly appreciate it.
So Glenn, for those who don't know you, explain what you do and a little bit about your background.
What I do is I help individuals who either run businesses or really the duty to bring in businesses for those kind of consulting companies. And when I work with the owners or the top tier people, it's really working with the top-notch individuals that are really trying to increase their performance to achieve the results they want to, but actually in a faster, easier, less stressful way. So we help overachievers become super successful in a shorter time period with less anxiety.
Love it. Okay, we're going to dive into that in just a moment. But before we do, how did you get to where you are today? Take us back many, many years. How did you get into consulting? How did you get to where you are today?
I wish I could tell you it was an easy road that was well laid out, but I started self-employed my entire life. I remember asking my father what a union was and what taxes were, and he started laughing. And it kind of set the tone that I wasn't very good working for people. I was more of someone that had to work on my own. So I've been self-employed for pretty much my entire life. Went through college, had 3 different businesses, sold them, got into this business, the consulting business, in my mid-20s. And at the time, I was helping people learn how to sell. And then I progressed my competencies into management leadership. And obviously, as my age became and my skills got better, so did my client base get larger and better also. So over 25 years, I have quite a track record of, knock on wood, some pretty dramatic results because we play and work with individuals that we know not only have the capacity to, but have the willingness to in terms of growth. Because an awful lot of people say want to do it, but very few people actually will do it. So I'm lucky enough to work with those that do both.
I want to actually dig into that a little bit more because you and I, Glenn, have taken quite a similar path in terms of the self-employment from the early days and building different companies and selling companies. I'm very interested to know, so before you got into consulting, you mentioned 2 or 3 other businesses that you built. What were they? Just give us a sense of what you started and what you accomplished with those businesses.
It started off as I was a laborer for someone, and I was watching this individual do what they did and how they run it, how they sold for it, what they did. And I just thought it was someone who wasn't working as hard as they could. So I went as a worker, not with him in terms of selling on my own. I actually started doing projects. So it was actually a painting business. So I had something as easy as painting the outside of the houses. My gosh, when I was in college, I was making more money than my father. You got to remember, this is 28 years ago, Mike. So at the time, faux finishing and murals was not the normal. So I would hire artists, pay them $100 a day. They would come in and paint amazing murals for people. I would sit with the housewife or the husband and talk, and they would do their thing. And then when they were done after 2 or 3 days, they loved us, gave us great referrals, and I would close those people and keep giving my artist $100 a day when they were very happy with that. But then I would make thousands.
Yeah. What was the next business?
So it actually was somewhat similar where they all started to progress into the same one. So it started as house painting, then it went to internal faux finishing, then it went to murals that turned into high-end artwork. That then turned into exterior, doing some side jobs and some other people. So it was all in that same type of field, just different areas where I was seeing people that were doing service work, didn't know how to take care of their clients, didn't know how to run a business, but were workers. It was the opposite. I figured the other stuff out and I worked. So when I saw them not doing as good a job as they could have, I kind of engulfed them. And then as time went on, Michael, I just took them over.
So you know what's interesting, Glenn, is the story of finding or observing a problem around you or an area that could benefit from improvement. The vast majority of people would see the same things. Not everyone would see them, but there's certainly a lot of people that see room for improvement, but they don't act on it. Here you acted on it not just once, but several times. What's the driver behind you seeing those opportunities and deciding to actually step in and make something happen?
That's a phenomenal question. What separates those that know versus those that do, I guess, right? So I think I grew up in a household, I'm not sure if it's much different than everyone listening in. We did not have money. My mom stayed at home. My dad worked, didn't make enough. I mean, he did great. We were loved in a lot of different areas, but money wasn't something that came pouring in. My dad was very specific in what he did with his money, but he also taught us that you will have a roof, you will have food, and you will be taken care of. If you want things outside of that, you're going to have to go get it yourself. So he taught us very early on, without realizing it, that if we wanted something bad enough, you have to put a plan together and go execute the plan to figure out how to get it yourself. So that difference between I want something versus I would need something. I would never be in a position of needing anything. But if I wanted something, he taught us to go put a plan together, figure it out, and go get it done without realizing it. But that's what he did. So in a roundabout way, it was very, very, very helpful.
And how beneficial do you think that lesson and that experience was or continues to be in your life as you've built multiple businesses and now looking at where you are today?
Well, I think if I follow that same mindset, Mike, that part of why we're successful where we are, helping our clients have a successful mindset, which is really accountability, responsibility, and ownership. And it's the same mindset, just it kind of depends on where you're looking at the situation from. So based on the conversation we're having now, what I got ingrained in my head very early on is stop complaining about what's going around you. Stop saying you should or could or would. If you want something done, go do it, figure it out, work harder than the average bear. And if you put a plan together and you execute, you should be okay. So when I work with clients and clients use the words like, we'll give it a shot, I'll try, we'll see what happens, those words don't register very well with me because I don't know what that means. So when you try, it gives us the availability of coming up short and being okay with it. Now, I'm not saying that if you come up short, you have to beat yourself up a little bit, but we have to turn our mindset into not accepting mediocrity from ourselves. We have great skills, all of us inside of us. When you accept anything less than your best, that's accepting mediocrity. And unfortunately, because I'm a shrink by background, 68% of us walking planet Earth will accept mediocrity from ourselves. And as a matter of fact, we convince ourselves that mediocrity is okay.
I see this in so many cases and situations. And so let's just explore one here together, because I think what you mentioned is something that a lot of people will encounter when they're working with their own clients. So you're working in a client engagement, you kind of review some recommendations with them and what the next step should be. And they give you the response that you just shared, which is, okay, I'll give that a try, or I'll look into that. Something that's a little bit ambiguous and not very convincing. How do you respond then to your clients? I mean, how do you rally them and get them to shift their thinking? How do you approach that?
We have a couple filters that I use pretty extensively. One of them is called the success triangle. It's through Sandler, and it's attitude, behavior, and technique. And when we look at attitude, behavior, and technique, you have to know and own the tactics and strategies that need to be utilized to dominate. Whatever your objective is, you've got to have the technique side. You've got to know it, you've got to own it. The behavior piece is what's your goals, your plan, and your action. Now, all the money's in action. We know that. But the sad thing is most of us might track and literally manage people's results, when the reality is the results are the only thing we can influence. What we can control is our behavior. So most of us, without even realizing it, we're actually following the wrong indicators. Instead of saying, hey, you need to have X amount of sale, or you need X amount of first appointments, or you need X amount of consulting gigs, the reality is what behavior do you need to do to get that? So the behavior is a big piece. And the attitude is really, we only have two different types of attitudes. You and I can speak for hours on attitude because you know that drives everything too. But we have self-limiting beliefs and we have self-empowering beliefs. And the self-empowering beliefs are those that consultants have that drive them to do the behaviors even when they don't want to. And that self-limiting beliefs, even when they know they're supposed to, they have procrastination around it. So in many consultants' worlds, for instance, they are exceptionally good at what they do, but they loathe being a salesperson. So because they loathe it, anything that's surrounding asking questions, prospecting, referrals, upselling, negotiating, anything that has to do around that area, that self-limiting belief of, oh my God, I'm getting into the ugliness of selling, then all of a sudden it dramatically impacts their behavior to utilize the skills and tactics. You know, a lot of times when you're looking for consistency in people who aren't ready to take action, I typically find is it's more attitudinal. So when we have conversations with them and we understand what their objectives are, and I'm sure you do exactly the same thing, what their objectives are, where they are right now, what's your gap, what's the reason for the gap, what's the impact of the gap, are you really committed to fixing it? Because if you're not, let's not start the journey. When we get people into that gap, the real purpose for us is to figure out what their emotional drivers are. Mike, at the end of the day, people buy emotionally and they justify it intellectually. People change based on emotions. They justify it intellectually. So if we want consultants to change, they need to understand the severity of the gap that they have. They need to feel the pain that they're in. And the reality of a good consultant is not discovering the gap, but making sure they have enough pain and where they are, that they are ready to change. Because if they're not, you're going to hear the things we just talked about.
Very well said, Glenn. When we started this conversation, you mentioned that you've been able to create some pretty dramatic results for your clients over the years. And it sounded to me like you were saying that one of the factors in being able to do that is that you're very selective in who you work with. You use the word committed. Is that the case?
It is. We have a process that's called the 6 Ps of excellence, which really helps a business owner look at blind spots within their practice. And how do you really create a bulletproof business? There's very common gaps that people have. Now, when we look at consultants, regardless of how big they are, I mean, at certain points, there's common issues that you have for under $1 million, under $5 million, and different types of markets you're under 50 million, 100 million. There are some common blind spots. These individuals, when you look at the consistency of those great individuals that want to change and they want to get to the next level, the risk that they take is knowing where they are right now, although it's great or good, where they want to go is better. And they're willing to let go of what they know to be true to go towards something of greater value. That's the risk piece. And I have found, Mike, that a lot of consultants, we call them campers. They've done a great job. They have huge desires, huge commitment, took big risks, right? They busted outside their comfort zone. They start to have success. And maybe they've had success for 5, 6, 7 years. And anyone listening in, if you have the same financial level of success for 4 or 5 years, you are in this box. It's called camping. And psychologically, what happens is our desire to grow, our motivation to climb that mountain turns into hey, I want to protect what I built. It's a shift in the mind. The shift to grow turns into a shift to protect. And now you have a great campground, great house or houses, couple cars, take great vacations, have a nice life. You're more concerned about upsetting what you've built than growing. And that's called camping. And because of that, your mindset now is everything that you're doing to build your business is around protecting what you built, not building what you have.
But that also makes a lot of sense because if you're in the early stages, you don't have much to protect. Your mindset is not going to be focused on one of protection, but rather just one of growth. And then when you start to really find your purpose, start to see greater results and greater levels of income, now you have something that you actually want to protect.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early-stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Yes. Just 2 weeks ago, knock on wood, I was nice enough to be invited out to speak at a main platform for consultants. And there's about 3,000 people in the room. And the talk I did was, are you camping or climbing? And unfortunately, in today's day and age, they want everything short little bursts. So it was just a quick 20-minute talk. But when you start talking, half the room stood up and started just clapping, going crazy because they were climbers. They're a great run rate. No one's saying anything wrong about what they earn. But it's that internal. They lost their mojo. They don't have the same passion anymore. They don't find themselves wanting to go to work anymore. So a lot of times when we have that camper-climber conversation, Mike, a lot of them who were climbers and loved to be climbers and just kind of lost their mojo, they lost their way for a little while, and they want to start to climb again. Those are our clients. The ones that are campers, that like being a camper, and they like going home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they get to work at 10, and they're making a good lifestyle, and they take 7 weeks off. That's all great too. We have many clients that we have from 80 hours a week to build that, to have that lifestyle, but still make a lot of money and still have their business go through the roof. So our clients, it's not an or, it's an and.
I think there's a really important lesson here for everyone listening, which really comes back to the idea of being very selective with who your clients are. Far too often, people just say yes to any opportunity that comes their way, where you'll learn over time that you can benefit from it sooner rather than later when you embrace this notion, this idea that by saying no to the wrong opportunities, the wrong types of clients, you allow yourself to then say yes to the right opportunities that come your way. And ultimately, when we're working towards creating a certain type of business, we're reaching for a certain destination. If we're saying yes to everything that comes along our path, we're doing a big zigzag, whereas we could really make a much straighter line to reach our destination much faster if we were selective. But that's hard for some people because it's the short-term versus long-term mindset. And a lot of people certainly are much more focused on short-term results and don't allow themselves to benefit from the long-term mindset.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, you have long-term, short-term. Look, you got to pay bills. So if you have an opportunity, and you and I know this because we've been doing it long enough, that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's a great mantra. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I'm sure you've been doing it long enough too, where you did some of those cans when you really shouldn't have, and you find yourself bending over backwards trying to manipulate things to make it work and really doing more than you should have to have the fruition piece come done. And then when you do it, it's good, but it's not fantastic. And as time goes on, you start to realize, you know what, I have a wheelhouse. I should know where my lanes are and be really good in my lanes. And if you have the opportunity to have enough of a market and enough of a draw, it's fantastic. But in the beginning, sometimes you may have to take business to get the experience to know I should stay in my lanes.
As you look back, Glenn, over the years of building your businesses, and especially the business that you're in right now in the coaching and consulting sphere, what's one of the biggest challenges that stands out to you that you really learned a lesson from, that looking back, you know that, oh, if I would have handled that differently, if I just had that, the benefit of hindsight, it would have made such a big difference?
A lot of the biggest challenges that I have found some consultants having, I would say across the board, one of them would be accountability, which is creating a plan, having buy-in to the plan, and then executing your plan. Every problem that a consultant has, I think, when it comes to sales, bringing in business, new business, the right revenue, the right type of clients, only happens for one of two reasons. Either they did it and they weren't supposed to, or they didn't do it and they were. That's it. So if you really take a look at everything that happens in bringing in new business and rainmaking, under those two auspices, the growth and the shrinkage of your consulting practice starts and ends with you.
Let's go a little bit deeper into that area. What are some examples of things that people say that they shouldn't say?
I guess it depends on your philosophies of selling. So if someone turns to you and says, Mike, I think we have a pretty good idea of what we need. Do you mind if you put together a proposal for us? If you don't have a really good plan on how to qualify people, most of us think that's a great buying signal. And the reality is that doesn't necessarily mean much. So if you didn't ask questions about money, if you didn't ask questions about their budget, if you didn't ask questions about who has to sign off on it, all those questions that go there and all the questions that have to go in decision-making and the hierarchy and all these great simple questions. If we don't do any of that and we go and do the proposal, well, shame on you. And you're going to get back, think it over. You're going to find out the answer to the questions you should have had answered before you did the proposal. It's shocking to me that people think a proposal is part of a selling process. The proposal should be a summation of what they're agreeing to buy. That's what a proposal is. A proposal is written confirmation of what we verbally agreed upon.
Great examples. How about the other one where people don't do things that they should have done?
So let's suppose I turn around and say, Mike, this is great. Why don't you send me something next week and we'll get back to you? And you say, okay, and hang up. Well, that's not what you were supposed to say. You didn't say the right questions. You didn't ask the right stuff. So a lot of what we get in a buying environment is the outcome of our skills, our attitudes, and our behaviors. And unfortunately, most consultants think selling is an ugly word. That's why we use the word rainmaking, not selling. We use the word head consultant versus salesperson. The perception of selling is So a lot of times what you'll find is many will choose not to do the right stuff because they don't want to be seen as a sales guy. And one of the reasons that Sandler dominates in the training business is we teach people to sell without sounding like a cliche salesperson. Because quite honestly, that's not how they buy. They don't buy features and benefits. They buy to avoid or get out of pain. And the nice thing is consultants are literally, I hate to use the example, but wolf in sheep's clothing. You're a consultant. You're not supposed to be a great sales guy. Use that power to your advantage.
Talk to me about how your marketing has evolved. Let's start with where you are right now. What do you find is the most effective way for you to attract and new clients and to build your pipeline? What's working for you right now?
All right. So I'm probably one of the simplest guys in the world when it comes to this piece. I really think it's easy. I think it's called Emerson's Law of Compensation. If you spend 80% of your time taking care of your clients, I mean, really taking care of your clients from a business standpoint, etc., your clients will bring you more business than you ever know what to do with. So for 25 years, I've done almost no marketing that the average person would talk about in terms of online marketing and LinkedIn and social medias and etc. My mindset's pretty easy. If you hire me to do A and I do A++, you will A, never let me go, and B, you'll make sure that everyone that you know knows about me. So my marketing, Mike, is pretty easy. It's my clients will bring me clients.
Love it. Okay, so now let's go back to the early days before you had the ability to do that, when you didn't have the clients. So you had to first get them. What worked for you in the early days to get your first few clients?
So back in the day, it's all phones. That's what we had. So we used to walk around. You had pay phones in the city. You made phone calls. But one of the things that, knock on wood, that I was pretty good at was speaking. Go figure, because I hate speaking in public. But what I found really successful for me as a consultant was being a guest speaker at other events and me filling the room for business owners on how to become a better rainmaker, how to be better at managing your people, how to make sure your people can get more productivity, have better truth in their pipelines, how to get them outside their comfort zones so they're not doing milk runs all the time. So what I did, Mike, is I did a lot of consulting work in the beginning as a guest speaker.
Like you weren't getting paid for them?
They were free, but now, of course, I get paid, yes.
Your business has grown to the point where you're spending 80% of your time really taking care of your clients. That's then generating plenty of referrals and new business for you. Your business and revenues have grown. How are you managing that growth? What have you used to allow you to scale your business without, I'm hoping, just working the same amount of additional hours?
Well, what I did was, we call it the blind spot. And the blind spot is me actually doing what I teach others to do. And that's taking a look at a 3-year look. I found anything past that is just not reality. So where do you want to be in 2021? And that means financial results, types of clients that you're working with, what you're selling, what are your averages, what does your client base look like, where do they originate from, all the financial stuff. Then from there, we go into process. What processes must run in the firm machine-like by 2021. And then also people, which is my org chart. And then balance. So if I look at 2021, Mike, with clarity, then it's just reverse engineering. Then I say, okay, if that's what 21 looks like, what does 20 look like? Then what does 19 look like? What is 18? So for me to end this year, I have to accomplish these objectives for me to hit what I need in 19 and 20. The way I look at it is, it's not an annualized process. These are just stepping stones. So if you look at your staircase in your house, the top stair is whatever your objective is. And each landing is just a year or a month to get there. So as long as we have clarity on what we're trying to build, I have found that's my best tool, because as I move through different levels of IT, different levels of social media that we can play in, different ways to communicate, distant learning, web-based, cartoon-based. I mean, I have lots of different things at our disposal that we utilize. All these choices, if we don't have a big picture, are made emotionally in a vacuum. When we make these decisions, we always have our storyboard of where we want to be in a couple of years, saying, okay, is this going to get us there? Or are we just chasing shiny objects? And that has helped us, as the best guiding light is keeping what I would call short-term decisions within a long-term vision.
We use something very similar, so I love to see that. How has your org chart changed as the business has grown? Is it yourself and an assistant? Do you have multiple people? What does your business structure look like in terms of team members?
Obviously, I have an assistant and I have CIO and CFO. We also have team members here that are in the developmental phase, which they're putting together programs for us. So we have right now, very exciting, we have 3 different programs we're in the process of doing. One from coaching, which is coaching advisors and coaching consultants on how to become better. We have others that go into the sales process. We have others that go into negotiating. We just finished one up for leadership. So we have 5 or 6 people that do the development, and I have 12 people that do training and coaching for me. So we have a total of just under 20 people here.
Well, listen, this has been a really great conversation, Glenn. There's so much more that we could dive in and explore here together. Been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing a bit of your story here. What's the best way for people to learn more about your work and to connect with you?
It's relatively easy. The prefix is 631, and you can just call Sandler, which is 631-726-3537. They can always find us on the web, which is Mattson, MATTSON /Sandler.com. The easiest way is to find us. Yep.
Yeah, we'll have all that in the show notes as well. So just head over to consultingsuccess.com. Go to Glenn's podcast episode and you'll see all the links and resources there. Glenn, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael, and best of luck. And I hope everyone out there achieves the greatest success that they've always wanted.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.